It was a fist fight. It was like Rocky IV. It was just such a battle.
Everybody that reports to you, you're responsible for their livelihood. You meeting your KPIs means they get to keep their job, means they get to put food on the table.
You got to pull them into the vision.
I was so stupid to say, like, I can do it by myself. It takes a village.
You have to develop that skill.
We all have struggles. Cool, leave it at the door. Come in, do your job right.
There's shades of gray.
There are tons of shades of gray. Everything isn't black and white.
Talk real shit. Backbone people, that's the gift. This is your seat, take your shift.
Welcome back to Talk Real Shift. I'm your host, Devin. On today's episode, I have the pleasure of speaking with Bill Currence, managing partner of CCO Brands. One unique thing about Bill is he's single-handedly attributed to ending the 2017 commercial trucking supply chain shortage. Join me on this episode. You'll want to stay tuned as we hear and talk some real shift with Bill. Bill, something interesting, which I don't know if you know, but you went to West Point and graduated with your bachelor's in civil engineering. I went to Wayne State and also graduated with my bachelor's in civil engineering. And I have done zero engineering in my entire career. I feel like a fraud telling people that I'm an engineer because I feel like that's a coveted position and job. But I've just got to know, how does a civil engineer, an Army officer, start off post-military professional career as a quality manager at a tier 1 automotive supplier?
Well, we need to back up just a little bit. First of all, I have to do this. You, and I dealt with you in French, you have an engineering mind, right? Were you not driving work process?
Yeah.
Were you not driving improvements?
Yeah.
It may not have been building bridges, but you were using those skills to manage entropy and waste out of your system.
Always. You're a trained problem solver, right?
Absolutely.
That's what I used to say. Like, that's how I got my first job. My actual first job was as an electrical engineer. And they're like, why are you qualified for this? I go, we're trained problem solvers, right?
Don't discount yourself, because that's what the core of engineering is.
Yeah.
Is you're presented a problem. Mm-hmm. And I have that same civil engineering degree. I've never built a bridge. I've never built a building. But we sure as heck have turned companies around with using that same physics-based, logical-based, mathematics-based approach. And I saw it play out in real time with your job. So you are an engineer, but you're more importantly a leader. So that's a good thing. Let's wind back just a little bit. So quality manager is where I actually started to get some traction. But when I first got out, there was a company called Cintas, and they really tried to hire JMOs, junior military officers.
Okay.
So when I made the transaction, it was pretty easy to make that transaction because these folks understood the value of that leadership skills, and they would put you into operational roles. So for the first year, I was a supervisor at Cintas, which they do. They recycle uniforms, repair them. Yep. So they rent uniforms out to Ford, GM, a lot of big companies, General Electric, across the nation, a very big company. So I was able to be a second shift supervisor, learn about operations, which that's where I got the kind of draw to operations. And then was an assistant plant manager for a year in Columbus, Ohio, when automotive industry started calling. And there was this former Commodore. So it's like a one-star general, but he was a Navy guy at GE. And he became very interested because he saw I lived in Circleville, Ohio at the time. There was a big GE plant there. So he started to recruit me very hard for GE. And I said, well, might as well just see what else happens. Right. So throw my resume out. And guy was an awesome guy. But GE, and I just got out of the military having to move around, do a bunch of moves. Said you have to do 4 different 6 months projects, to go on your fast track in different locations. Yep. And then on the 5th one, you finally get to stay for 2 or 3 years. I looked at my wife and we talked about it and said, do we really want to be bouncing around like that? We had already one young kid and we were trying to have more. So there was another opportunity came up with a little tier 1 injection molding and assembly facility. And I had an opportunity to be a quality manager, to know anything about quality at the time.
But you know how to follow rules. You know how to follow
I
discipline.
know how to read books, right?
There you go.
So that was the old QS 9000 system. And they said, here's the 6-pack. It was SPC, MSA, PPAP, APQP. And I just dove into the books and I said, okay, if there's going to be a contract or rules or whatever, and that's the engineer coming out, is I better understand them.
Right.
So I did that. And then I kind of hit a snag. I did really well at the quality manager job there because I just learned and I just applied those process techniques. And then I had thought I was going to have a shot at a plant manager because where I was working for that first year, we had an interim plant manager, a guy named Skip Ryan, super good guy, who was bridging the plant until they found a full time. Well, there was 3 candidates internally, and I was one of them. But realistically, looking back at it, I didn't have enough experience in automotive, but I probably had the most potential.
Okay.
But they chose the guy who had been there, and rightfully so, for 10, 15 years, right?
Yeah.
So then I thought he persecuted me and was trying to willingly destroy my career because this gentleman, who in hindsight gave me the best gift ever, made me do quality manager, materials manager, procurement. I was a controller for a year.
So even
engineering
finance.
manager. Yeah, finance.
Wow.
Which got me intrigued because what was going back getting my MBA, I just went ahead and just, decided to go ahead and get it in finance too. It was like 14 extra credit hours.
Okay.
So, because a lot of the financial stuff really with ERP systems and everything was weird and didn't check out.
Right.
So I'm like, there's got to be more to this. There's got to be a deeper level. And then finally, when he got promoted after 6 years of me being there, he's like, you're ready. So you can go up a notch. And that gift, he gave me a perspective, relativity, seeing it from the different viewpoints of each. Now I know what the materials manager's thinking. Now I know what purchasing is thinking. The only 2 areas left out was sales and HR. So I was going in with a pretty good foundation. And once that solid foundation, I could start to build stories. So that's where my career actually started to take off to where it is today.
Okay, so let's talk about that career. And I have to say, I called it like the triangle method, right? Like you started very wide, very, very quickly. A lot of rapid movements in 6 years. And then your career it accelerated exponentially because you did have that background. So you have those roles, you get promoted to plant manager, then what happens?
Well, I had options then, right? Actually, it's funny how things are, the world's small. An opportunity to go up and give up the plant manager role and take a step back to a much larger plant for the same company in Romulus.
Okay.
They're opening up a brand new plant. And then I also said, well, I'm going to roll the dice here. Don't really like not being the top guy because I spent this 7 years earning the title.
Yeah, right.
And there was a particular personality of the guy they picked that was just not my speed. Just not able to, accelerate the organization. So I thought that might not be a great fit. So I put my resume out, spent a year at a GKN facility. And that was stamping, center metaling, everything else like that. And, gears and stuff for GM, for Ford. So that was a really good experience in some really hardcore foundry type manufacturing, forgings, hot forging, stuff like that. But then there was this interesting guy, Terry Gould, and he won't mind if I mention his name. He's iconic in the industry. So he was my main mentor, came calling. And it was the Lear plant, and they had picked up that I knew injection molding pretty well. Well, I spent 7 years at a smaller injection molding company. And during that time, engineer coming out in me, I learned how to do scientific injection molding. Figured if I was going to be running the plant, I better know how we can do it better than everybody else.
Right.
So they came knocking on my door and said, hey, would you be willing to go run a plant here in Ohio for us? And I said, well, sure. I said, what's, and that's where I wanted to make sure I was, progressing my career. So I went from like a $50 million plan, a $15 million that, took me 7 years or 6 years to get there, to about a $50 million plant. This is about a $250 million plant.
Oh my goodness.
So I'm like, sure. Well, it has 3 business units, but the main driving force is injection molding. So
your expertise.
Yeah, they recruited me in, and I was able to take over, run the operations at that plant. And from there, that relationship is where I met Scott, my best friend. It was briefly. We only had a couple like plant manager meetings where we get together quarterly. I didn't know him that well, knew of him. He was actually a director. So he had 6 plants, but we had 12 plants in the division, I believe, but he had the other 6 plants.
Okay.
Great guy, CEO of Central Motion, Carl Beckwith. So that's another great company that Carl's running now, was my director, and had a great experience at Lear there in Huron, Ohio. Never actually left. I mean, my all paths pointed to Detroit.
Right.
So that was where my career was going. But that great leader wound up leaving Lear for another opportunity. He was the senior vice president. He had an opportunity to become a president. That's Terry. So he moves up to another company, and he said, hey, I don't know how many of you guys I could take with you. He goes, I can tuck you in, or you guys can go find something else, and I'll bring you in over time. Well, that was a good trigger point for me to say, what's next? So I went out and had a little bit more autonomy running a plant in Belleville. Is it Belleville? Yeah, Belleville, Michigan, right across from Romulus. And kind of waited for something to happen when Terry got resettled. And so I went out, ran a plant, had a ton of fun there. Injection molding plant again.
Okay.
And for about 2.5 years. And then here comes Don Stebbins, Terry, these guys calling from Visteon. And that's where I went into Visteon. And that's where it's like, okay, you've been a plant manager 4 times here. Time to do something different.
Yeah, step up.
I remember Terry, he's a really excitable guy. He's like, all right, time to put your run shoes on. We're gonna run around the road, we're gonna fix all this stuff. And he wasn't kidding.
Yeah.
So that's where my career really started to accelerate, because I made connections all over the world. Every broken factory, it seemed like in the darkest, deepest corners of the world, myself, and then eventually, probably a little less than a year later, they brought Scott back, who's my best friend, who's my business partner. And we had certain titles. His was like global OpEx. Mine was like global manufacturing engineering. But the true essence of go fix it, guys. So they're like, go fix this plant, go fix that plant. And so we went all over the world fixing. I think we fixed about 30 plants in about 4 years.
30 plants in 4 years.
Yes.
Unbelievably impressive. And I've learned, because I think I took for granted that that's how my brain worked, right? I don't want to go into this well-oiled machine. A well-running plant is kind of boring. Yes, it's absolutely boring. I want something that's broken, where there's no rules, and I get to make the rules, and I get to
engineer.
Fix it. Yeah.
Engineer.
1,000%. Yeah. But that was my draw and my love to operations. It is this natural adrenaline high that you can't get anywhere else, right? When you walk into something that's so broken and you rally a team to do the impossible, and you ship more pieces, you make more widgets, whatever's going, out that door, right? Stuff comes in one door, you do some stuff and it goes out. Even when you see the light bulb going off in the team's head, it's everything.
That's so rewarding.
It's everything, right? That was my fondest moments as a leader, when you get to give people that aha moment. But there's something about manufacturing, operations, logistics, when you're on that plant floor that you just love. So 30 plants, 4 years, you've taken these broken machines, you've supercharged them, they're well running. Then what happens?
Well, actually, my partner split. So Terry actually goes from being a group president, and again, one of the most remarkable guys, to CEO of Key Plastics. So he takes over, private equity owned. It's a step down from his scope that he had at Visteon, a step up in title. And he was more than ready. I'd follow Terry right off of a cliff still today. I'd give him the shirt off my back. And same for my partner, Scott. So the need over there was OpEx deployment, manufacturing process systems. They had pretty decent manufacturing engineering. And there was kind of a drug deal cut that you could take one but not both between Don and Terry. Yep. So I stayed and got moved into our largest division, which we took on about our 15, 20 plants over about a 3-year period. And I worked for an incredible guy named Dave Valkanoff, who's now the COO of Benchmark Electronics. So he's Awesome guy too. I had great bosses. And when I stuck around, I brought a lot of people in and we continued on, but Scott and I never stopped talking. I do have to opine here a little bit. Some of the most annoying things, and I won't mention the names of these big 5 or 6 consulting companies, is when those guys were thrust upon us. And you have a bunch of whiz kids that's never worked a day in the plant.
Yeah.
We're talking shift here, right?
Yeah. This is real shift, right?
This is real shift.
So this is where we're going to transition. We're talking real shift. Leave that leave that other shift behind.
That's right. And so all it was a bunch of shift. When they came in, they had no idea the complex interdependencies. And so we had to deal with that during the as we moved along, saying this is worthless. We're paying tens of millions of dollars
for nothing,
thousands of dollars an hour for a PowerPoint presentation and a big bill, because and that's what set the mind up. So why I said Scott and I was talking. He was running operations at Key globally. I was still over there running. Started out with manufacturing. I picked up Scott's old job with OpEx.
Okay.
I picked up manufacturing launch manager. So I had a handful. And eventually toward the end, I wound up picking up running manufacturing operations because my boss had moved up, picked up quality and the rest of PD engineering. Okay. So he said, hey, just cover this for me. So it was still good progression. And, having a good boss means everything, right? So
it really does.
I had Terry, I had a guy named Kurt Jensen, who's now running Concord stamping plant, a big supplier for Toyota. Wow. Awesome boss.
You are the company you keep.
Yeah, you are the company. And all those mentors taught me and helped me. And the thing is I could have been prideful. No, I know more than them or I'm smarter than them. Being smart, and this is where we'll probably get to a little bit more in the podcast, being smart is learning your shortcomings, learning your blind spots, and not being so arrogant that you don't let other people teach you, especially in areas where you don't know as much. And so the fact is, and there was a few times I wanted to bristle up and stick my chest out. And it's like, hey, I'm not doing this because I'm your enemy. I'm doing this because I want to develop you. And those people were meaningful. But Scott and I started to get this feel like these other, big time consulting companies, they don't get it because they're not in,
they're not in the chaos.
They're not sweating on the floor.
They're not in
the shift, right?
Yeah. They don't feel
they've never been
struggle.
there for a 24, 36 hour breakdown of a clutch and a big stamping machine.
They haven't slept in the office underneath their desk with a pillow made out of their coat. Not that I'm speaking from experience or anything, but
that's what planted the seed. So we kept talking, saying there's got to be a better way. But eventually my time ended. I left on my own volition for Visteon because my boss at the time, who's now running Benchmark, said, hey, I don't see this as being my next step. For me to move up another tier, I got people above me. I'm going to have to leave. He gave me a pretty healthy warning. And so I decided to say, what am I going to do next?
Right.
And that's when this all started to come to fruition. It's like, can we help people with real help? Not consulting. I point at anti-consulting. Really get boots in the ground, get in the trenches, because so many of the folks that had helped me in my career were now off to other companies, but we had built that trust. And, we had delivered for them when we were all working together at the same company. And they understood the need that, bringing in somebody who could actually transact and execute and knew what the real issues were. Most of the folks out there in the space, especially if they haven't worked in plants and they haven't worked in supply chain logistics purchasing, they want to try to cure the cold with a Kleenex. Yeah. And you can't do that, right? You need to understand what the root cause is. And so we just said, we're going to put together a team that goes and kills the root cause. And a lot of times people are like, oh man, this plant's a disaster. My warehouse is a disaster. Within 90 days, even the greatest disasters can be fixed. If you have the willpower and the volition and you subordinate to the right processes, it can be fixed quickly. And that's also another misnomer is if you truly align the team and you're all rowing the boat the same direction, chasing the same goal, and you have superior process and process subordination. So that means, hey, everybody's going to be held accountable. They know what they're going to be held accountable for. Those are the things that really cause you to accelerate your organization and get out Dutch. But too often, even still today, the biggest thing that we compete against is not necessarily our competitors.
It's ourselves.
Yeah, it's the company itself. Oh, I can fix it. Well, for 6 to 10 months or 2 years, your cash flow's been going down. You haven't fixed it yet. So what makes you think now that, your boss is poking saying, hey, we want to use these guys? You're wearing 3 hats already and you're in the death spiral. So that pride and arrogance is probably the most significant factor. But once you've blown through that, hey guys, we're not your enemies. We're here to shoulder up and help. We're not here to upstage you. We're a hired gun. You have to get the calories in. You're sitting here on life support, dying of anorexia because you don't have the resources in the right spot. Yet, you want to sit there and, kind of shake your fists and say, I'd rather, go down in flames than to take on the calories I need because somebody else is, putting them in the IV.
Right.
So that's what it's just kind of a shame. But, in today's society, Americans are ultra competitive. It shows a sign of leadership and better strength if you accept help when you need it. And that's a lesson I had to learn, even my arrogant self, is that I had some mentors that had I not had them in my life, I wouldn't be where I am today. And I had to learn to listen. I had to learn to accept help.
That is some real shift, right? Because I've personally struggled that in my career, coming across as arrogant or knowing it all, particularly as a female in a male-dominated world.
Mm-hmm.
But it was more so because I didn't want to admit that I didn't know, right? My tenacity said, if I just work hard enough, I'll figure it out. But when you don't bring people on the journey with you, you don't build that network. You don't get to learn what you don't understand, because I can study a book, I can dive into it, but somebody else has already lived it. And I was so stupid for so long to say, like, I can do it by myself. It takes a village. It takes a team. That's why there's a whole team in a plant.
Especially being a female in the industry, because you have, you are actually have more challenges because let's face it, manufacturing, especially hardcore manufacturing, and the worst thing you could do, and you've learned that lesson, right? Mm-hmm. I did it myself, I just thought, I got the West Point degree. I'm going to be the plant manager when I first started. And then 6 years later, I'm finally the plant manager after all these experiences.
Which is still a very fast trajectory.
I looked at it as this guy's killing my career. And now I look back and say, thank you, Bill Silbereis. You made my, career path because you caused me to have patience, right? And to learn from different viewpoints. Same thing though, but the other thing though too, Devin, I'm going to flip the coin on you. So
let's do it.
But this is a problem with people around you as well too. And this is where I've had to learn. And I'll tell you a personal story where I felt really, really stupid now in hindsight. But how many times are you actually right? Probably the majority of the time. You're brilliant, you're bright. You had the right solution.
Thank you.
And then you just get agitated because people want to buck you. They don't want to listen.
Yeah, they just don't want to, you know it.
So
you know it. Just listen to me. For goodness sakes, just listen. I was hired for a reason, right? I'm not completely incompetent. I know what I'm doing.
Yeah, it's just, let go of the scruff of my neck. I know what I'm doing.
Yes.
Right? But one of the things, and this is a personal story that I've had to learn of, I was, big bad football player, pretty good football player, Division I at West Point. So played Army. We were pretty decent back then. We weren't great, but we weren't horrible. Beat Navy though. I got to get that in there. So, when I was going through, God gifted me with some pretty good intelligence. I'd go through and just pretty much ace my science and my math classes and stuff like that. I was a big bad football player, and I thought the human element, psychology, philosophy, sociology. I'm like, I'm going to look stupid if I get anything more than a C in this class. I'm going to feel like I'm bad, I'm big. This softer stuff is
doesn't
nonsense,
matter.
Right?
Yeah.
And as I got more into my career, and there was a lot of times earlier on, it's like, I'm right, doggone it, and you're going to listen to me.
Mm-hmm.
And, a phrase that always stuck with me is people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And so the shame kind of overwhelmed me for a while, saying I just completely missed it when I was at West Point. I was almost with volition or purposely making sure I didn't get a B or an A in those classes because I would not look macho.
Yeah.
The human connection is everything. So as I've got older, and we're both wired the same way, we're go-getters, is to soften the delivery or to make sure I take a breath and explain and pull them into the vision. And really, the time I was really learning that lesson was about the time we started this. And there's still struggles even today because some people are going to be so hard-headed that you can't help them, right?
Yeah.
But if you can show them a vision or a light, and that's the softer side of the leadership that has to be there because you can be right all day long. So you got to pull them into the light. And that is something that I don't know some people are better than others, but you have to develop that skill over.
So I used to be told all the time, you have to stop being like a bull in a china shop. I think my mother told me that as a kid. I was told that throughout my career, right? It's that softer side. I attribute finding that softer side to after having my daughter. And it changed my perspective because I was a very black and white leader, right? There's wrong. There's a process. We follow the process to the T. Like, that's what you do. We all have struggles. I can list off my battle card of trauma. You have yours. Cool. Leave it at the door. Don't care. Come in, do your job right. But that's unrealistic. And when I had my daughter, it opened up the world in my eyes to the fact that everything isn't black and white.
There's shades of gray.
There are tons of shades of gray. And when we're vulnerable and we're appropriately vulnerable, we start to connect with people in a very different way where we build that network. We have a team. We have an army behind us that's cheering us on, that's supporting us. What was your pivotal point? I mean, no shift. The real pivotal point where you made that transition from macho football Army officer, West Point graduate, to the leader I know.
Well, the Lear job, it was a trauma. I would have never in a million years would have, which actually goes back one job before that. God caught up with me, right? And I'm just going to say it out loud.
He does it in an amazing way, doesn't he?
I was running a GKM plant. And thank God Terry came calling and bailed me out. But it was a union plant. I always wanted to fight with the president. I always wanted to fight. I had a really bad guide that basically called my manhood into question, who was a consultant that was there that they had that I was going to take, running the operation at consultant's place.
Okay.
And I'm not going to mention his name, but he said, you're too soft on these people. So my going in point was right because I just spent 7 years, a year as a plant manager, but 6 years getting to know people, and we had a family. So I knew better. I came in and this guy challenges my manhood. And so I'm going to show him that I can run him over and everybody else. And I lost myself and I just started fighting with everybody. It was firing people. And yes, did I fix the plant's P&L maybe for 2 or 3 months? I was at a point where I couldn't even look at myself in the mirror and I just wanted an escape. So what happened in that case is Lear comes calling. It gives me an escape hatch. That plant was not going to be sustainable for very long because just the destruction I had left getting us to the brutal cutting of heads and everything.
Yeah.
Because my manhood was challenged, affected so many people's lives negatively. And then I'm like, just dodged a bullet there.
Right.
I wound up having a similar leader. It was in between me and Terry at Lear that did the exact same thing to me.
But you were smarter this time.
But no, I got it. I got fired.
Oh, no.
And it was God saying, you ran away from this. It was
you don't get to do that.
Like chasing Jonah, right?
Yeah.
It's like, I'm going to give you exactly what you gave those people. You're not going to escape it.
He was calling you out on your shift.
So I had a very bad leader that bad interpersonal skills. Yeah, he called me out, and it was a traumatically emotional experience. But I understood you got me, right? And
Yeah.
I'm not going to be able to escape it. At that point, and it was two events that led to the recognition that going forward, you can be firm and hard. So when we lead turnarounds, I just go, right?
Yeah.
I just go and
Full speed.
If you're caught in the wake, but if you sit there and you try to pacify people or overtalk it or too soft,
You can't.
you know, they'll get more trauma than we're gone, right?
Yep.
You know, and I'll pull you if I need to. You know, you can ride on my shoulders for a little bit, but we're gone. But you also have to take the time to understand the human element. And those two events where I got away with bloody murder, and then I tried to change and do the right things for the right reasons, and then bloody murder got me.
Yeah.
Got back up.
Wow.
Was life-changing for me. It's like there's always has to be a balance because I can't stop being me. You can't stop being
Nope.
you. You're a driver, you're a leader.
Right.
But at the same time, we always have to have that trade-off of understanding the human element while we still don't lose speed because of drag of it, you know,
Right.
to accomplish a mission.
Right. Wow. Bill, that's some true like talk real shift.
You know, you're dealing with true people, right? So
That
there's
I am.
people on every one of those shifts that depend upon us, right?
That's in that, you know, everybody wants to be a manager, right? You hear that, especially as I kind of mentor and see in women in manufacturing or as I'm part of the Automotive Women Alliance Foundation. And I'm talking to people that are up and coming in the industry. They want to manage people. They want to manage people. But I always challenge, do you really know what that means? Do you understand what you're asking for? Because everybody that reports to you, you're responsible for their livelihood, right? You meeting your KPIs means they get to keep their job, means they get to put food on the table, all of those things. And when they don't perform, you're also responsible for addressing them. And that's not easy. But you took that human element, you took all of these things that you learned, and you started CCO. And that's where I met you, right? It was what, probably 4 years ago now. I was in procurement. I'm at Yanfeng, a tier 1 automotive plastics injection mold supplier. I have no idea what I'm doing because I've never worked in procurement, right? But much like you, it's like, okay, I'm going to figure it out.
You're smart enough, you're going to figure it out.
We're going to figure it out, right? It doesn't matter how many contracts I have to read. It doesn't matter how late I stay up at night trying to figure out labor law. Like I'm going to figure out what I need to do to support my plants. And what they needed was exactly what you said. They needed anti-consultants. They needed what we coined on-demand labor, where you pick up the phone and you're like, we're tired of the plant failing. Come fix us. And that's your 8 years into managing CCO, right? Probably about that time because you started in 2015?
12 now.
12?
So, yeah.
Okay, so 12 years.
2014 was the inception point. It actually went under a different company name for about a year.
Okay.
We had two parallel companies going on simultaneously. But that year was, and the first company or CCO did really nothing. Okay. So this other company that Scott ran was called VIP, Value Implementation Partners. So you had CCO here marking time. And that time was for me to go through, and I had nothing to do with VIP other than, helping, Scott as a friend, right?
Okay.
So I had a year non-compete, non-solicitation. Once that year was expired, CCO kicked into gear. And so that's where June of 2015, CCO starts to replace VIP. So there's a little bit more of a story in our timeline. But back to this. Yeah, we've been doing this pretty much a dozen years now. So
wow. And you're good at it, or I wouldn't have sourced you the business. I can guarantee you that, right? Because I didn't play around.
Even during that situation, I wish in hindsight I would have been more involved. And this goes back to, because I have a history with Yangfeng. I mean, we were together when I was at Visteon. Yangfeng Visteon was part of my oversight or support. Okay, so I didn't run it. There's a super good guy named Bob Pyle that was over there, and Bob's the CEO of a packaging company now in Pennsylvania. Another great leader. But with my responsibilities, there's a lot of people that are still there today, or a few holdouts that I was instrumental with helping. Probably should have been more to step in. Yes, we can provide the labor. We can provide it quickly. We can provide the right talent for what you're asking for. The issue in some of these cases is, again, like I said, you're putting a Kleenex on the cold. That a lot of our own clients, and this is where we're trying to be, more intentional, is that do you really know what the problem is? Because you can't put a Band-Aid on a sucking chest wound. In that case, or in other cases, it may be more assembly, or it may be more injection molding, or it may be more paint. So, but yes, we can turn people very fast. We can turn the right type of people. It's taken us years to get that database. We got welders, stampers, CNC experts, injection molding experts. It takes time to build that.
Yeah.
But our goal here is when the flag goes up, we're not only quick, but we're on target, for that talent. And so, and I owe you a lot and appreciate you in believing in us in that mission to help you guys on your journey when you were there.
The call-off process is broken. Say goodbye to inconsistent communication. Absenteeism, no call, no shows. Say hello to TeamSense, the only text-first and fully automated attendance reporting system. Reduce absenteeism by up to 40%. Employees simply text and select the reason for their absence. No app required. Supervisors are instantly notified so they can quickly adapt to fill shifts. Data syncs automatically to your records, making it easier for HR and ops teams to track trends and stay ahead of workforce planning. And when you need to get the word out, everyone will see it. Reach 100% of your employees for the first time ever. TeamSense also syncs automatically with your tech stack so that you can easily manage everything in one place. We're trusted by leading companies who have seen up to 50% reduction in no-call, no-shows. Discover how you can transform your absence reporting and employee communication today. TeamSense. Call-offs made simple.
One of the things that kind of sold me on CCO was this concept that you guys weren't just coming in as consultants, right? We didn't want somebody that would sit in an office somewhere,
tell me conference room, playing solitaire and putting a PowerPoint presentation when somebody comes in.
Thank you. Don't give me a PowerPoint presentation. I can put a PowerPoint presentation together. And goodness sakes, nowadays we can have AI put a PowerPoint presentation together.
Consulting companies is in trouble with AI coming down.
Oh, I'm sure. They've got to be. But you went back to this fundamental concept. Like there's some industry 4.0, there's some OpEx, but really it comes down to one key word with you.
I want to hear what you guys could say. Well, for me, there's 4 things that run an organization.
Okay.
There's discipline, accountability, through process, execution. Those 4 things. Now you have to have the human element in there.
Always.
And there's 10 intrinsic orders that always reoccur that you need to be tuned into. That's a whole nother discussion with our fundamental intrinsic theorem, or our FIT operations. So they always play out. You can't escape them because physics is physics, but you have to have accountability. So what was your word?
I was going to say physics, because it all comes back to physics.
Let me just go a quick opining on this. So AI is coming down the pike and everybody's wanting to depend upon AI.
Yep.
If you can't, and this is what we're doing to get out in front of it for our clients, because we love our clients are our partners. I don't look at them as being and so they're starting to fall suspect to wanting to go out and, AI will fix it. Does AI tell you what your OEE is for plant or press 1, 7, and 8 and paint line 3? Does it tell you what your downtime and scrap items are? Does it tell you if your cycle time efficiency? Does big AI, open AI, tell you that? I got the highest account level for ChatGPT. I do crazy things with it, but there's limitations because it doesn't understand the personality. And based off the level of PMs, the level of maintenance, the level of type of products, let's take injection molding because we're both familiar with it.
Yep.
If I have one type of material, I may have a barrier screw, I may have a hardened screw, I may have a general purpose screw on something else like polypropylene. All those things over time change the performance and
Yes.
if you're not on top of it. So I may have one particular root cause in one press, an OEE of 54%, and this one may be 73%. Very rarely are they ever 85% or above where they're quoted because of neglect, because of lack of focus. But until I understand the probability distribution of that press, because if I'm averaging 54% OEE, that means some days I'm averaging 20.
Right.
Some days at best, I may be averaging 60. So that's the physics, and you have to define physics and probability and statistics. Over time, what we do is we go in and we identify what those probability curves are. And then we do one other thing a little different. You have to remove the noise because you would know as well as I do, you have step A, B, C, D, and a lot of these.
You have to have a process.
You know, it goes
standard operating procedure is like
press,
key
these
one.
parts go to this press, then they go to the paint line, then they go to final assembly. So it's not good enough just to know my downtime and my scrap.
Mm-hmm.
And I need to be able to start to go a level deeper. Well, what type of scrap is it? But more importantly, where is it? But on downtime, there's even a bigger step into it because I have to do 2 or 3 other things. So I got maintenance downtime. I had 45 minutes of maintenance downtime. And most accountability rooms will be like, all right, well, what happened? Well, we had, a proc switch that needed to be adjusted. Okay. This is where CCO has figured out for our clients, we got to go another level. And this is where our digital twin maps what's on the pasteboard. Okay. So let me see. Operator says the press is down for something. Door's not opening or closing or whatever. It's a proximity switch or a lot of times it's small stuff like that.
Right. Somebody hit it. It's crooked. It's whatever.
This is the accountability thing we're talking about in mapping physics. The operator knows that if they don't push the button when they know the press is down, it's operator downtime on them. It's part of their scorecard.
Mm-hmm.
No supervisor screaming. It's part of their scorecard. So we call it benign accountability. 20 minutes later, because it immediately calls maintenance, 20 minutes later, the maintenance guy shows up, right? Why? And so then a KPI that a lot of people don't do is, what is my maintenance response time for the call?
Yeah.
Because if you're in cooking a meal for your husband, your daughter, your kids and stuff, and you're trying to do the right thing and you spill some grease accidentally on the kitchen counter and you can't find the fire, extinguisher.
Sure. You can't put water on it.
Call the fire department. So if they respond in 2 minutes, you might have to replace a couple cabinets, possibly a stove. What happens if it takes them a half an hour?
That could be your whole house.
The whole house burns.
Yep.
Right? So you got to go a step deeper and you got to say, okay, 2 minutes is a KPI. Because the plant's only so big. So if you're not responding in 2 minutes, it's one of 2 things. You're either, looking over and engaged in some other fix, which means I may not have enough maintenance people.
Yep.
Or 95% of the time, I didn't respond in time. Watch that happen one time. And then what invariably happens, they diagnose it 2 minutes. Oh, it's a proc switch. Well, I got to go back to the MRO crib and get my toolbox. 20 more minutes goes by.
Right.
When if I would have had
ready
MRO and had tools up there, which the company needs to pay for that because the downtime is much more costly. I have what should have been a 2 minutes response time, 2-minute diagnosis, and a 3-minute fix. And so I lose 38 minutes out of the 45 minutes that were unnecessary. You got to go deeper. And then one more thing you got to do is you got to take out noise from our system. So if I get blocked or starved, so let's say I get blocked upstream because there's some other kind of problem. You can't assign that responsibility to that upstream process. You can't.
Right.
And here's why. Because that's not the fault of that process. I get starved. So, it's all for buffer sizing. So if I know physics, what those probability distributions are, and I remove the downtime for blocked and starved, now I start to see how it would perform on an island. And that automatically reveals where my true bottleneck is. And we have a whole IP of physics approach that clears this out once you get about statistical relevant data is about 30 shifts. So within about 2 weeks, if you're working 5 days a week, most of the time we go in and it's working 7 days a week.
Yeah.
So within 2 weeks, you got 21 shifts in a week. 2 weeks, you got 42 shifts. And then you can see all the variation between the shifts. Say third shift, hey, Sue operates a lot better than Bob here. So all that stuff we have the capability to sift through quickly. Some of it's noise. You can't look at one event, but man, we can change that dynamic fast. And Where a lot of people just tune out is if you don't map your own internal micro AI for physics, you're lost. You can use all the open, the open AI, the big AI. You have to hook into your plant and you have to also commit to the process. And I'm telling you, it's incredible how fast you can accelerate your plant and how fast you can open up market share. And then one more little thing, you have to sync your open capacity that you just were wasting before. How do you get your salespeople?
Right.
So all that stuff has to be synchronized. Like, that's all the physics of it, right? So that's where we developed this. And it wasn't because, oh, look at us, we're so smart. I mean, there's also
but you are
all kinds of problems with the ERP. It is, hey guys, if we engage with you and you truly, want to go for this ride, you're going to, within 6 months to a year, dominate your market. And you'll be able to grow and you'll be able to accelerate your cash flow. But a lot of people, that's where that pride, or they just don't want to take time because everybody's this.
Everybody's that, or they don't want to invest in it.
Right? And so it's like you have to take a few minutes here to focus and understand what's going to happen. And then you have to stay focused. You can't be back on Twitter or something all day long during the workplace. So these are some of the challenges we face today. But I can tell you right now, almost every plant that we face, I can't recall one that couldn't have been fixed. If maybe you have to get external funding, maybe you have to go through a quick in and out bankruptcy or a Chapter 11 and get some investment bankers if you're that far gone.
Yeah.
But all of it's fixable. You just have to have the willpower, volition, but you have to also understand the process, and you can't have a short-term attention span, and you have to follow the physics.
Because it's all about the physics.
It's all about the
physics. I said it's one word. It's physics.
Yeah,
everything comes back to it.
Get misapplied towards a theory of constraints environment. I get theory of constraints. It can't define the entropy, right? And that's the number one thing. It was built by a physicist. And the guy was super smart. He elevated the game, Ellie Goldrat, right? But he was never able to quantify. He used to make fun of manufacturing people saying, you guys are manufacturing experts. Why does it take an Israeli physicist to show you guys how to run manufacturing? Well, why does it take an old manufacturing guy like me to be able to say, hey, what you missed is physics, quantification of the entropy and where and how to manage it to go to. So it's a little, all this barb in each other. But the reality is you have to quantify the flows of entropy. You're always going to have it. Yep. See, Lean always says eliminate all forms of waste. Impossible. It's a violation of the second law of thermodynamics. You will have waste. It's just how you deal with it to be able to get the best outcome. And we have all that in our package. The shame of it is like, I'm going to get to be an old man and I'm going to get past retirement age, when right now we're at a point, and especially with the adoption of AI and using it right, we can change the world. We can change American manufacturing better, because you mentioned earlier, there's a technology gap. There's a resource gap. You want to talk about that? Because I know you guys, you're mentioning it.
I do. So I want to, it's Talk Real Shift.
Yeah.
So I want to hear your real shift story that would resonate with people that are considering possibly going into manufacturing, operations, logistics, because we know there's a huge talent gap. It's not a glorious job. You typically don't get to sit in office, although there's office facing jobs, right? Sales, marketing, finance. Sometimes those are office facing. But people don't want to go into it. And it's what's made America. It's an honest living. It has wonderful growth potential, whether you have post-secondary education or not. What's your real shift story that you want to share that would inspire the masses?
I go back to middays Visteon, which was my stop before Scott and I started this, pretty much my last big stop. And the world's changed. Okay, so it's not really as much. I mean, if you want to talk about the thing where I fell in love with this, or I know the value of it, was all the way back in Visteon. We had a car plant, our plastics down in Monterrey, Mexico. And Scott and I lost part of our soul in Monterrey. We were working 18-hour days.
Long.
It was just the most screwed up plant ever. And, it's all worth it moment to me, or why this is an honorable profession. It was so hard, the days. And we were both tasked, and I would go down for 2 weeks and be back a week trying to do my day job, my other global day job. and Romulus. He would go down for 2 weeks, come back for a week, and we would overlap like a couple days in between those weeks. So there was always one of us there. And it was a fist fight. It was like Rocky IV, you know, we were fighting Drago, right? It was just such a battle. But
Why?
it was everything. We had negative contribution, prime contribution, stuff where the labor and material cost more than a piece price. We had to fire customers. They had no idea of process control. They had a strategist, really good guy that was a plant manager, never got out of his office, got in the plant floor. The deterioration, dilapidation of equipment. We had to tear that down. We had 8 to 10% OEEs across the main bottlenecks. It was complexity. There were rear lamp shemsels where you had rotating platens on the mold and you had 2 shots, 1 shot over another. And so a lot of complexity down there and no process adherence. So we had to set all those things up. We had to define all those processes, but we had to live it. And then at the same time, you're chasing trucks out the door to fast track the 15-minute drive over to the Apodaca Airport, Monterrey Airport, just to get on a air freight to go to Puebla, to get to VW, to go somewhere, to get to GM, to go somewhere, because we were so far behind. We were shutting down plants, right?
Wow. So you're flying everything.
We were thrust into this. But as we turned the corner and you saw those light bulb moments, and it was when Don and Terry came down, and Terry's all excited. He's like, I want to show you. And he allowed us to have the capital that we needed, spruce up the plant, clean it up, put some paint on it, get some flow racks, get the air stuff. It was a small investment to the opportunity. It was a $160 million plant, losing $120 million a year when we went in.
Not an issue. Yeah.
So we got it back, and the handoff point, we were losing $4 million. We went down from a $168 million plant to about a $130 million plant. We were losing $4 million, and we had the trajectory to go across break even, and we handed it off to another guy. That was one of our counterparts once Scott and I did the turn. Terry's out there running. Don's the CEO, and he's like, come on, Don, I want to show you what these guys did. I want to show you it. This is awesome. And Terry turns around and looks all pissed off at Scott and I, saying, what are you guys doing? What are you falling behind for? Blah, blah, blah. So Scott's limping along, and I'm limping along. And there's blood. It was like that Kurt Schilling moment coming out of Scott's socks.
No.
And
I don't do blood well.
Our feet were just hamburger, right? For just 6 months ago. And then it's like, pull up your side, and same thing, right? Blisters, everything. We just had worked so hard. And I'm thinking to myself, we made it. But then the people element. So at that point, I'm like, there's nothing greater than this. There's nothing harder than this. There's no other challenge. And we saved these. They may not have been American citizens, but they were still citizens of our team.
They were still people.
We helped save their jobs, right?
Yeah.
But then the human element and our lesson learned is, I'm sending you guys back on the corporate jet. And I'm like, oh, thanks. Get a corporate jet ride for, 6 months of our lives down here. That wasn't the big thing, but Don and Terry had sent a bouquet of flowers and a bunch of other stuff, sweets, and everything, to our wives, and said, I want to thank you both for allowing us to take your husbands away from you to change the lives of these people. So that was the moment I knew manufacturing operations was something special. Now, fast forward to the criticality of this. Back then, having a college degree meant you were going to make out of the gates 20. There wasn't the resource gap that there is. So now things have changed. And what I tell young kids is this, that today we've got kids, and this is why I bought a training company, me and Scott did in Tampa. They do training in the plants. They have all kinds of testing. It's mechanical, electrical, pneumatic, hydraulics.
All the skilled trades.
All the skilled trades, and also robotics, controls, automation, engineering, all that. We have courses for all that. Because, now if you're a young, not only is it an exciting career, if you like playing Minecraft, you'll love playing Plantcraft. If you like video games or Tetris, there's no... You're problem solving. And when you're in those video games, especially for those guys and girls wired like that, you can solve these problems, right? So the opportunity now is I can invest a third of the money to get to trade school and to learn these skills and make almost twice as much. I mean, some of these kids that we're paying that are really good.
Oh, I know.
50, 75 bucks an hour, and they got all the overtime they could possibly get. They're making 2 bills a year, 200,000 plus a year if they're willing to work.
Right.
And they don't have all the debt to go for it. So that dynamic is completely flipped.
Shifted. Yeah.
Look, our birth rate is 1.56 for the United States. That is catastrophic. In a generation or two, there's not going to be any of us left, right?
Yep.
These younger kids that are getting to marriage age aren't getting married. They're having kids later. They're having fewer kids.
Yes.
So we have to do two things here. We have to train what we have now. These kids, we have to convince them to come over and understand this is a fulfilling career.
It's
amazing, and it's going to pay
wage.
more than people with college degrees. But number two, we have to bridge the technology gap, because these kids that learn this are going to have to do twice as much as what we did with the technological advantage, because there's no other way, because there's not enough people.
Yeah.
So what we've invested in at CCO Brands is, we've got to train the next generation. And I'm telling you, and I can look right in the camera on this, it's one of the most rewarding careers you could ever have. And you have problems to solve all day long, different types of problems.
You're never bored.
Getting into manufacturing, supply chain, logistics, that whole area, the industrial area is not, but now it's also the best paying careers.
It is.
So all you have to do, I mean, if you can get yourself off the couch and off of pushing buttons, you'll be pushing buttons on, ladder logic in a plant, right?
Yeah.
And you'll have just as much or more fun, because once you've done it there, it's not, I just built my fortress in Minecraft. Oh, I'm really happy. Is I saved 100 jobs.
Yeah.
Because I fixed this.
Which is unbelievably gratifying. And the cool thing about it too is you can be transient and move all over like you have, or there's so much opportunity to stay put, likely close to home. I mean, when we look at Michigan, we're the top automotive manufacturing state in the country, right? You can throw a stone and hit in manufacturing, logistics, warehouse, distribution, somebody, right? But it's close to home. You can grow within a company. You can change companies and grow.
It's not hard finding jobs.
No.
If you're going to get into the technical space right now. I mean, there's such a demand-supply gap, because the supply, and it's dwindling even more. So you can almost pick your price. I was telling my daughter this. I live down in Frisco, Texas for part of the year. I have a Frisco office down there. And the cranes and everything else and all the growth. I mean, it's not like here. This is pretty stable.
Yeah.
But it's just like they can't suck in enough talent. Environmental engineers, environmental science, industrial engineers, civil engineers. But they also have to have the skilled tradespeople, and that's even more of a gap. And so those people are down there making like 75 bucks an hour straight time, and then they have all the overtime they get. They just make a ton of money because they have to have those resources. So, please, if you're listening to this podcast, I mean, the shift is worth it, right? You'll put up with a lot of shift.
Lots of it.
But it's fun, and you feel like you're accomplishing something in life. Nothing better than saying, I helped make those parts in that car, right? That's part of my plant, and I've got a piece of me in these cars or these trucks or this widget or that widget.
When I managed a team, whether at GM or Amazon, even when I was at Yanfeng in procurement, I used to tell my team, when you're a doctor, which is an unbelievably noble profession that I could never handle doing, right? You can only see and help so many patients.
Generally one at a time.
But even within a lifetime. You can only do so much. The amount of people's lives that you touch, everything that we're looking at, right? This microphone, this notebook, our clothes, the hairspray I put in, every single thing was made by people somewhere.
Yes.
There's nothing that impacts more lives at such a grandiose scale.
Somebody made these microphones. That's jobs behind it, right?
Yes.
I mean, you're exactly right. And doctors, this is a misnomer. You can respect me for this. Doctors never really save a life. they extend the life and they extend the quality of life, right? Because the human mortality rate, entropy, and this is part of the physics, eventually give enough time, entropy always wins. It's how we fight the battle with entropy. But truly, you can ruin a livelihood and it's ruined, and it could be forever a death spiral. We, and you've done this in your career too, help save the livelihoods of, it could be 1,000 people or more in a plant. If we make the right decisions and engage, I mean, it's such an honorable profession, what we do in this role.
It really is. I mean, that's why I came to this role. That's why we have the podcast. It's why I personally joined Team Sense, right? It was about actually making a difference in people's lives, making a difference in the front line, making a difference. Thank you.
And you will. You will.
Thank you.
You're very talented.
Aw, you're too kind to me.
I'm sure you'll have some other really, really good guests. So.
Listen, fingers crossed. Okay. You could go back and talk to 25-year-old Bill. What would you say? Would you do anything different?
Yeah, don't eat so many cheeseburgers.
But don't you want to do that when you're 25? Listen, because it starts going downhill really fast.
My life has been pretty well blessed. I don't regret much of the experience I've had, good and the bad. And I've had some bad ones, and a lot of them I've created myself. What we're doing now, I would say you're going to be proud of what you're doing. Start 5 years earlier. Don't wait until you had enough. There was a certain point where my cup was full enough with seeing people over the world, building connections. If we'd have made the break when Scott left Visteon, went to Key Plastics to run global ops there, I already had enough of
your network
all
built.
over the world, enough of the network built. Most of it was just redealing with people in that same network.
Right.
And I could have had 5 more years where we could have had this thing going and helping people. Not ashamed of anything we do. What we do helps stock prices, mutual funds, people's retirement funds, their jobs.
It's their livelihood.
The business owners. When you bring that up and you eliminate that waste, that they just don't know until they know, right?
Yeah.
So ignorance doesn't mean stupidity, but stupidity means if you want to stay ignorant, right? So there's people who engage and embrace the process will always get better.
Yeah.
But how many more lives could we have touched in a positive way had we started a little earlier? I know it sounds like I'm skipping around the question, but that would probably been the best advice. You're going to have a break point when you and Scott are going to separate ways, and one of us had to get it started. So he was going to go over there, run ops. I would have probably made the break then. But I will say this, the thing that was the appeal is I had such a good guy as a boss I was going into.
Makes all the difference.
And, again, I'd do anything for the guy Dave. I'm so proud of him. He's the COO of a large company, Benchmark, electronics. And to see his career progress, the good guys sometimes win. The good gals sometimes win. But there's a lot of folks I see that are good that because of politics get their career shoved down.
Right.
So it's good to see a few of those good guys win. So that was the appeal. But knowing what I know in aftermath, I would have mortgaged that, even though I love the guy, that relationship, to have been able to be out there a little earlier.
Make a difference faster.
Have this, done. The other thing, too, is I should have brought the bit operations, the entropy management, physics-based, but I'm still struggling with this. How can we accelerate that to the market? There's also some tremendous, not intentional fallacies with ERP systems that don't match up to reality. And I feel like still today I'm in the sludge to bring that forward quickly enough to market, because if we do it, this will change the dynamics and the performance level of everybody, and all boats rise when the tides come up.
Yeah.
I got to find a way to get that moon tugging and get that tide coming up. And it seems like a personal failure sometimes on my part. It's like, how can I get this done faster? And so that's one of my biggest challenges today is how do we get not only the word out there, but how do we get the technology buttoned up to enough where you have a complete package, you just took it in, you throw out the old ERP system or it talks to the ERP system. And now you have a real-time physics-based, activity-based dynamic costing system where you know every day where you're at. You don't react to little noise, you react to trends and stuff that automatically guides you, gives you IRR and net present value returns on. You can Monte Carlo it where you can say, hey, if I buy tools and put them up at the press or impact wrenches, or if I do this or that, and some of those struggles that nobody can ever get through, you just put it in there and it says it's 3,421% IRR. You got a 5-year time horizon as the maximum as things change in 5 years. You're an idiot if you don't do it, right? But right now, there's so much of that struggle because people only see, I call it the left side of the business equation, because operations people aren't finance experts. They don't know how to do IRRs. So they'll say, hey, I need $50,000. It's going to be good. So the finance guy doesn't want to get caught with their folks and they see just the one side of the equation. They don't know the other side is $2.4 million over 5 years.
And that's a thing that I struggle, even as we talk to TeamSense customers, showing them that there's the ROI, right? Like it's not hard in my mind. It's not hard to prove out because it's how my brain works, right? Like everything's a math problem.
Everything engineer, right?
Yes.
But here's the thing. You knew intrinsically, but you still didn't have all the pieces of the puzzle, but you knew what the puzzle looked like in the end. So, and the finance people want to see every piece plugged in the puzzle, right? The issue here was for us, are we going to be cost more? Which the answer is going to be yes.
Yes.
Are we going to cost more than your fully fringed wages?
100%.
Maybe 20 to 30% more, right?
Yeah.
But the butts aren't in the seat. The parts aren't being made. The ball's
You're losing the money anyways.
The ball's not going in the end zone. I'm not getting paid, right? So if I have to pay, what's direct labor on your budget? Probably 8 to 10% of sales is probably what it was, right? So I'm going to pay a 20% increment on 20% of those people. So I'm going to pay 20% more on 20% of 8% of sales. So I'm going to pay less than 1% more, and I'm going to wind up having all that upside by getting that contribution margin by putting the ball in the end zone, getting the parts out the door, and also the premium freight, the off-standard sorting costs.
There's so much to it.
And all that is part of that equation. But the finance folks say, Devin, I don't know if you should spend this because on 8% of our overall budget, which is direct labor, we got a 20% gap. So I need 20% more people, and I'm going to pay 20% more than our fully fringed wage. Once you start to break it down in its elements, there's no argument. I got to get the people in because I can't get the parts out. But
you need the right people.
And that's what our systems are going to do in one fell swoop is you don't even have to do the math. It does it for you.
Wow.
Yeah, it does it for you.
How amazing is that?
Well, it's only amazing if we can, get it really smoothed out, which we're pretty well smoothed. I mean, I can walk everybody through this. But if we don't get the word out, people are still going to be in that impasse and struggling. You think the finance person trying to protect the company is doing a bad job? No, they're just trying to do their job. But until they have those other elements, you're trying to do your right job in purchasing because you know intrinsically our plant's struggling. We're paying premium freight. We got all these issues. Get the butts in the seat. So if we can take all that noise out where we're all looking at the same problem the same way from our different perspectives and agree, that makes things so much easier. And you preserve the most valuable element in any business. There's only one main most valuable element.
And it's our most expensive and it's our most high risk.
What's that?
It's people.
Now this is going to be a learning moment.
Bring it on.
So I will say this. I will submit to you. The most important dependent variable. No.
Fair.
Put your hat on.
Okay.
Your engineering hat.
Yeah.
Is people.
Yes.
But you've seen people come and gone. You've come and gone. Is Young Fung still there? They're probably less off, without your talent, but are they still there working? Yeah.
Absolutely.
People come and go.
Yeah.
There's only one thing in life you can never get back. And once it's gone forever.
Time.
Whoa. That's the center of the hub.
Okay.
So you can never get that time back. So if I waste that time and I don't get the ball in the end zone, the times came off the clock. I can't get that time back to put the ball in the end zone or do a replay. And so eventually time runs out. So time is the center of that hub because it's a universal, independent constant. And if I'm expending that, how many times have you seen an organization get behind and then the checkbook comes out and they're just writing checks to catch up because the SOP date's coming? So,
Yep.
And how many times have finance departments been complicit in that, not because of bad intentions, because they don't want to cut capital, or they're trying to make the cash flow numbers look better.
Yep.
Or they don't
They're trying to balance it.
So they're asking operations who are out there, making parts to give me an IR, or net present value, so I can justify this to the board, or I'm going to get fired. And so you get all these silos that build up. And so what our systems do is just
breaks it all down.
Takes it down where everybody is cross-connected. You build a neural network. So every part of the organization, because in purchasing, you're a big part of the organization, right? In supply chain, a little different. People want to make them the same, right?
Mm-hmm.
So moving stuff around
different.
and buying stuff is very
different.
And then you have operations, making stuff's different. Quality, it's your liver and kidneys, right? Purging out stuff, making sure you're clean. The heartbeat's your machinery, right? But in purchasing and supply chain, that's the food you eat to supply the blood in the organism, which is the cash flow. That's this equivalent to blood. And then what's the brain, which a lot of times has to be questioned, is your executive staff and your leadership staff, right? Okay. And so if those neurons aren't firing and talking to each other, and what's your strength, right? Your people. So if you don't go, I'm putting my hand on the stove and I never recognize because my nerve endings are dead, I'm going to burn my hand off and probably die, or, have to chop an arm off. So how is your accountability process communicating down to the bottom, to the janitor, and all the way back up and getting a feedback loop saying my hand's on the stove? So those are all things that are imperative. And, when you're talking shift.
Absolutely. Bill, this has been phenomenal. I appreciate you sharing some real shift stories with me. Before we close out this episode, I want to ask you, what is your call to action, your ask that I can help you with?
Spreading the word.
Okay.
This always works. I'm that confident because physics don't change. I don't think there's a black hole coming into our solar system that's going to change. It's going to change the dynamics of the way physics, but even that's definable. You know what they're going to do.
Right.
So we can fix every situation if you're willing to engage. So the spreading of the word that we're here to help. We're not here to we're not a used car salesman. We're not charging huge markups. We want to see you succeed. And that we have tools that no one else has. I go on AI all the time saying, is there somebody in their basement or in their garage? And they haven't got there yet. And it's because of the way the approach is. So, our mission, and again, I can't shovel, if I make billions of dollars, I can't shovel at my grave at the end, is how many people show up at your funeral. I want to help these companies. That's helping, just doing this is very beneficial to be able to get it out to your viewership that, help is out there, and you don't be so prideful you don't have partners, because we've taken years to specialize in this. Now, if I'm learning here of lately, understanding legal speak, or, if it's something, like lawyering is something, I don't want to do. Consulting is another thing I'm really not that interested in, because I don't like pontificating. I like getting stuff done. Anti-consulting is more of our speed. Yeah. There's professions out there that, I'd be sitting here lying to you. But if you're in any type of supply chain operations, distribution, we have spent years and we've seen it all over the world refining this. We absolutely can help you have better performance. And I appreciate you helping us get the word out.
Absolutely. And I will now speak into the camera, and I will confidently say I can speak from experience that Bill and the CCO team know exactly what they're doing. I've personally used them when I was in procurement. I've sourced a lot of business over my career to you because I watched it work. I saw what it could do. I saw it help turn around the business, and I know you can do it for other people.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
That's what we're here for.
Absolutely. Well, Bill, thank you so much. This has been another episode of Talk Real Shift. And until we meet again, I'll see you out on the floor.
See you out on the floor.
And a special thank you to Team Sense for sponsoring this episode.